Hi, and welcome to week 7. I learned a lesson today in always checking your equipment. I had recorded 20 minutes worth of videos here on the comparison essay, and then when I went to play them back, discovered that my microphone was not turned on. So hopefully I can remember everything that I wanted to cover for you the first time around because I was pretty happy with those. So anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the short videos that you had on just kind of a refresher on the comparison essay. I realized that it's covered in Composition 1, so I didn't feel that we needed to go through a full half-hour explanation of the comparison essay again, but I did want to refresh, especially for those of you who maybe haven't been in composition for a while. And the reason why we're coming back to the comparison essay is because I feel that it's probably one of the most frequently used tools that you can have in your writing and analytical arsenal as you approach any subject area or any topic of research. So just to get into again kind of the basics, what you should be thinking about as you're approaching your essay. I'm being a little bit lazy in my language here. A comparison essay technically is one that's looking at similarities between two things or is looking at both similarities and differences. And then a contrast essay would be one that is noting only the differences. And I tend to use comparison to indicate all types of an essay that's looking at differences, similarities, and differences. So bear with me and forgive me that slate. It just is easier than always having to say compare and contrast essay. Okay, one thing that you want to keep in mind is that you need to have a clear reason for writing the paper that you are writing. And it might be that you're trying to make a point about one of the topics that you're comparing, or to make a point about an issue in general, or your comparison or contrast should serve a specific purpose. Okay, one such purpose might be to help clarify something. Perhaps you're taking an unusual process or a very abstract concept and you're comparing it to something more concrete or something more ordinary to help the reader understand this new idea or this unusual idea. So that might be one reason for a comparison. The second might be that you're just trying to give us a better insight to help us understand how these two leaders came to be who they are, or insight into the real problems or the depth of the problems relating to your issue. And the final reason, or one other important reason for writing a comparison essay, might be to make an evaluation. You want to indicate that one of these two options is stronger, is better than the other option. Now, you need a strong thesis, and this should present the subjects being compared, and it might also indicate whether you are looking at similarities or differences. But you definitely want to lay out for the reader not only the two topics you're comparing, but also what categories you're going to be looking at as you compare them. What are our points of comparison? And with that in mind, I do want you to understand that while it is important that you discuss the same points of comparison or the same categories for each of your topics, you won't necessarily always have the same amount of information for each topic, especially in that situation where you're trying to clarify by comparing something ordinary with something new and unusual. You're probably going to have more to say about the new and unusual thing because that's what you're trying to really help the reader understand. But you should be connecting by using the same points of comparison or the same categories throughout. Okay, so it is possible that you might talk more about one subject than you do about the other. Now, before we go too much further, I'd like you to find the student sample that we're going to be working with here. It's in your shared files folder or in shared files on our class page. And within that, there is a folder called Compare and Contrast Resources. You'll see that there are several different sample essays in there. They're all great to look at for different purposes, especially the one on prostitution shows you a different organizational style. It works with the block style. The one we're going to work with, organ donation, is using the alternating or the ABAB style. So if you can, I'd like for you to download that and even print it out so that you are able to mark it up and follow along with the notes and with the information that we'll go through in the PowerPoint here. And we'll be looking at not only the structure of the comparison essay, but also some other writing style tips that you can see that come through in this author's writing and in her essays. So starting with her introduction, and you'll probably notice right away that this is a 2-paragraph introduction. We do tend in Comp 1 and in high school composition classes to really hammer home that idea of a 1-paragraph introduction that establishes the background, has the thesis statement as the last sentence of the paragraph, and that's a great beginning formula. But as you become more adept as a writer and more confident in your writing style, I do want you to realize that there are other possible ways to approach these things. And this essay would give you a good example. We have the first paragraph that is going to establish the problem that is going to create the reason for writing our comparison. So the first thing that happens is that we're opening with a very dramatic sentence. A critical shortage of organs for transplant exists in the United States today. Get your attention. It indicates that there's some kind of a problem going on here. And then, more importantly, she follows up with proof for that. We have a paraphrase of a statistic from one of her sources. Each day, 19 Americans are killed by our nation's failure to implement an efficient organ procurement program. Right, so that's showing you that she hasn't just made up this idea of a shortage of organs. Now notice she's documenting with parenthetical documentation the source of her paraphrased information. And when you are dealing with an article that does not have an author, to document that within your text, you would need to put the title of the article in quotation marks, as she has done here. On the references page, you do not use quotation marks. So that's a slight variation that you need to be aware of and adapt to as you're introducing information and as you're citing sources within the text of an essay. Okay, so she has documented her paraphrase. She goes on to introduce a couple of key words that are going to reappear throughout the essay. In the current system, organ donations are voluntary and altruistic, but this system isn't working. And we are now given kind of a focus here. The United States must develop a new way to increase the number of available organs. So then in the second part of this introduction, we're now going to identify the topics that we are comparing. 2 proposed solutions to the organ shortage are the adoption of a presumed consent system and the legalization of organ sale. All right, so now we have our topics, and then she's going to go on to clearly lay out for us the points of comparison. Radically different from our current system, these proposed plans would both revolutionize organ procurement, but in very different ways. Presumed consent and organ sale systems are carried out using dramatically dissimilar methods, raise differing ethical concerns, and have had varying results in real-world applications. So 3 points of comparison. We're going to look at the methods of the 2 possible solutions, we're going to look at ethical concerns, and we're going to look at the results they have had. Now, her final sentence explains the reason why we would want to compare these 2 solutions. Until proposals are analyzed, no decision can be made on how to solve the critical organ shortage plaguing the United States. All right. So our pure thesis statement would be this here: presumed consent systems are carried out using dramatically dissimilar methods, etc. But the second one helps to clarify, or this last sentence here helps to clarify our thesis and really zero in the focus of the essay. Now, as you are thinking about topics for your comparison or contrast essay. Solutions to the problem are definitely one possibility, but you might find that what you need to compare are significant events or key events that have happened within the history of your topic. Or you might find that you're comparing two important figures, people who have had an impact or have made important contributions to the issue. You might be looking at comparing legislation, okay, two different laws that have been passed or ideas for laws and how they would affect things. You might compare what's happened in different countries relating to your topic. So there are, just a wide variety of possibilities for what you could compare. You need to choose something that's really suited to your topic and that is going to progress your understanding of the topic. Now, in the second video, we'll come back to the student sample and we'll take a look at the body paragraphs.